Well, Sarah, thank you for coming by this evening and joining me for Grill the Candidates.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. You're running for City Council.
Yeah.
Where do you come from? How is it that you ended up in Highland?
Yeah. So I grew up until the age of 10 in Idaho, very rural. My dad was a rancher.
Oh, great.
So grew up in rural Idaho until the age of 10. And then we moved to Farmington, Utah in Davis County so that he could do some ranching there in Farmington. And then his path took a variety of places, and so we became a little bit more suburban. That was a big change for me because I did like the ranching life, but it brought a lot of opportunities as well. So graduated from Davis High School way back in the day there in Davis County. Spent most of my youth there then. Have spent some time in Montana, but most of my adult time has been here in Utah. I came to Highland because of a job.
Oh.
So yeah, it brought me to Highland in the Traverse area, but I chose Highland just because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I liked the neighborhoods. I thought it was well run, and looked into all of that and chose Highland to be my home.
Awesome. Do you want to tell me what it is your job was, the occupation? What
Yeah.
is it?
So I am a registered nurse. So I have a bachelor's degree in nursing and a master's degree in nursing administration. I have not been at the bedside for a very long time. So I've been in the operations side of large healthcare systems and specifically care management. Now I work for a company that is a third-party administrator, and so I run their care management, care operations. So I've really been able to branch out and not just stand the healthcare industry, but also really the business industry. And so it's a different path for most. So I'm also a mother of 7.
Awesome.
And I have 7 grandchildren.
You are a superwoman.
So
You're not old enough to be a grandma.
I am. But thanks, we could be good friends.
That's not just an empty compliment, man. You really do have a youthful look. I mean,
that's very kind.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, maybe it's all the kids, but they're all adults.
My kids made me old.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know this, but I'm only 36.
Well, I just had a birthday last week, and so one of my kids said, "No, you're 29 again, right?" I said, "That's correct.
Yeah.
Don't forget it." Now, that's a little awkward since I have children older than 29. Well, I don't know how to explain that.
I'm serious. You could have fooled me.
I have always wanted to run, and I have served as state delegate and been politically active in that way. But the time just wasn't right when I was raising my children, and now that they're all adults and things are settled and they're kind of doing their own thing, the time was right for me to say, I want to enter that arena. I think I have a lot to offer, and I would like to serve in that way. And I have the time and the means to do so now. And so I chose this time to enter into the Highland City Council race.
Great. Yeah. I think desire for public service, and people should know this doesn't pay very well.
But you don't do it for the money.
Yeah, it's not for money, but it really is public service for your local community. So I think that desire comes from a good place. So congratulations on having that, to everybody who's running.
There's a couple that are at the front of the residents' mind, and they're really important, although I think there's some things that we need to keep on our minds as well, in addition to what the residents talk about a lot. So they talk a lot about open space, they talk a lot about taxes, and those two things are really great, but I have some concerns that as we talk about those things, one, we need to be able to educate folks exactly what that means. I certainly love open space, but we need to have a really good balance between what open space and where do we want it, what lot size do we want homes to be on, what kind of community do we want to build, and yet balance that with also what kind of commercial things do we want to come in. And that dovetails into taxes. They get to spend the money that's raised. And so there's some responsibility there to say, hey, let's not spend it in a way that others might want to say, we need to tax folks more. Let's be responsible, but let's also educate the folks. The things that I think that some people don't keep top of mind is things that are happening on the national and the state level that may come to affect our community. And that's part of the reason I'm running.
Give me some for instances.
Yeah, for instance, through this COVID, a lot of money from the federal government has been given to cities.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's made the difference in the budget.
It's made the difference in the budget. Now, if city councils decide largely, along with the city folks, the city personnel, how that money will be spent. If you spend it in a way that you expect that every year, you're going to run into some problems. And if you spend it in a way that also, usually you have residual expenses, you'll spend it in a way that's very responsible, but you also have to take into account, hey, there's going to be these expenses that will be reoccurring, and how are we going to account for that if this federal money stops?
Mm-hmm.
Also, sometimes when the federal government gives money or the state, there's very specific stipulations to the money,
sure. Yeah,
right?
Usually
they
some
say,
strings, yeah.
Right, there's strings attached. So that's not always bad. Sometimes that's good.
Yeah.
Depending
sometimes
on
it's accountability, and sometimes it's nudging you in a direction you don't want to go.
Right, exactly. So how do we make sure that we say, this is money we want because it's nudging us in the way we want to go. This is money we might want to pass on because this does not match what we want our community to be in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so keeping that watch for the city and not getting caught up in just, oh, this is free money.
Right,
so there's
right.
a good example of what sometimes the federal government can do to affect how the city is run.
Are we on a good path with open space, or is there a course change that is needed as we talk about this as a community?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I need to dive into it a little bit more because it seems like the majority want the open space. Now, I live in a community where I pay $20,
mm-hmm.
and I see how the property is maintained.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's some right behind my backyard. So I watch the mower come through, and
right, yeah.
and I get to say, wow, he did a great job today, or could you get that a little bit better,
right? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, usually they do a great job. But there's also a trail near my home that is closed because it hasn't been kept up.
Mm-hmm.
And so when will that be updated?
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, though, I think that the benefit of that outweighs any negative
mm-hmm.
piece. And I know there's some residents that would like to purchase that open space because their backyards border it. They would like their backyards to be a little bigger. And so I think it really is a balance, again, saying, what is it? Is it just a couple of residents that want that space? And what does that do to the rest of the residents in that neighborhood who use the trails,
mm-hmm.
who use the open space, who bought their homes because they had open space, knowing that they were going to have to pay $20 a month.
Right.
So I accepted that when I bought my home. I can't lie, there's been times where I've said, hey, I would love to have a little bit of that open space added
mm-hmm.
to my backyard just to
yeah.
make it a little bigger. But when I think about it, then what would that do to the rest of my neighbors?
Right, yeah.
So I think that's a balance, and I think the city council has really approached it well,
Mm-hmm.
listening to folks and then coming to a decision, but I don't think that's going to end.
That's one of the challenges that a lot of people need to recognize in running for city council is that no matter what you decide, you're going to leave
mm-hmm.
someone upset.
Yes.
How do you deal with something like that?
Well, I think I've had a lot of experience.
As a mom?
As a mom.
And a nurse?
As a nurse.
Right, yeah.
As an operations manager.
Yeah.
I wish that you could please people all of the time.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. But sometimes, well, a lot of the times it's just not possible because people have different needs, competing priorities, different thought processes. So I think the best thing and the best approach I have done is, hey, let's listen to every point of view. Because there's going to be point of views that maybe I haven't thought of.
Right.
And so I don't want to sit in a bubble and think, oh, well, my idea is the best. I must know everything about it. I think it takes a lot more thought than that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a citizen that comes and is prepared and is thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're not,
Yeah.
I feel like they deserve to be heard.
I agree. I
Right?
agree. It sharpens our own argument.
Yes.
Trying to explain it and have that discussion sharpens our own argument. So it's good to have this, well, we don't necessarily agree, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't find it threatening to have people disagree with me. In fact, I think it's, like you said, a little bit enlightening. To one, I think you have to understand what the community is thinking. And hey, part of the community is not thinking the same way. And can we move anywhere to help meet those needs?
Right.
Can we educate to help them understand the issue? Like you said, maybe they came in at the last minute and they didn't know some things.
Yeah, right.
So let's help them understand.
Yeah.
But really that listening ear, I think, is really, really key in whatever situation you're dealing with. And then you move from there. And maybe you find a third outside resource and do some research to really be educated about each topic, each thing that comes to the City Council, and say what would be best for the majority of the citizens, and also be really thoughtful about the future. So I do this every day in my work. Okay, today we can make one decision and it's going to work today, and say, what is this going to look like in 10 years?
Yeah.
What is this business? What is this road? What is this neighborhood? What is this, whatever that decision is, what is that going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Right.
Highland's
been a bedroom community. Do we need more commercial, or are we good where we're at, or what's your thoughts on commercial?
I think that there's some areas of Highland that are not as desirable for residential. There's some places, even if you go along Timpanogos Highway, there's some properties without any structures on them. I don't know what the owners there, of course we want to support them as long as they want to remain there and do that thing. But I know of one particular property that has been on the market quite some time on that highway. And you think, okay, then that's telling me in this market, that's not as desirable for a residential zone, because nobody's buying it when the market today is a house goes up and there's a bidding war, it's quite competitive. And so then should we think about then, is that some of those types of places ripe for certain types and appropriate types of commercial establishments that will serve the residents of Highland?
Right. And is there anything that we missed? Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
The safety and those type of public services. And that's certainly been on my mind. One, making sure that they're available for the residents to use when they need to, but also making sure that our police and our firemen and all of those public servants are taken care of. Making sure they're paid appropriately, but also taken care of emotionally and mentally and physically. They're on the front lines of seeing the worst that Highland has to offer, and sometimes the best.
Yeah.
And so you hate to think that Highland has anything negative.
Right.
But those are the folks that deal with it if and when something comes up.
Highland is one of the safest, if not the safest, communities in Utah. We have a great fire and police department. We want to keep it that way.
Yes.
And that could require greater investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been on my mind as well. Just thinking about something that I want to make sure happens for Highland, because as we grow, that's going to be really important. I think one, my background is so varied that I understand a lot of people's point of view. Two, I really love Highland, and I love the people of Highland, and I want to serve them. And I think just telling a story a little bit about myself might demonstrate that when I commit to something, I commit to doing it well. I don't do it halfway.
Yeah.
So I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, raising my children. My kids were ages 2 to 13, so kind of munched together, 7 of them. And that's when I decided to go back to school. And so that was a big decision after being a stay-at-home mom. In fact, I had taken some classes online, and you needed recommendations from a professor. Well, I had never met one because I had only taken online classes. I needed a recommendation from a work person, but I had been not working for 15 years. Well, I'd been working, but in a little different way. And so I had to make all of that happen. And my kids remind me often how they remember going to school with me, because I literally took some of them to preschool on campus. In fact, one of my daughters, she said, I remember you making paper frogs while I was in class with you. And yet you got straight A's.
Wow.
And it was a very busy time. And so that kind of dedication, once I'm committed to something, is what I would give to the city council. I'm not going to leave anyone behind. I'm going to make sure that my whole self is in it, and give that to the people of Highland, because I think they deserve it.
Excellent.
And so I think that's why I'm hoping I can ask for people's votes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your coming by this evening. Let me grill you a little bit.
Yes.
And good luck to you. If
Thank
people
you.
want to find out more about you, how is it that they find out or reach out?
People can visit my website at votesarahpetersen.com. There's also a way to contact me there if they would like to ask me questions or reach out to me directly.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Sarah. Are you ready to eat?
I'm ready. Let's grill.
Asian tacos. Let's grill.
Yeah, they sound delightful.
More water if you need it. You doing okay? Okay.